Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be together with you all, and especially on this beautiful night of Radha Ashtami, that night dedicated to the appearance of the embodiment of bhakti. I thought, well, let me start satsang with one of my favorite stories about Radha, and then we'll go into the questions. There was a moment in which, in Bhagavan Krishna's Leela, in his drama, in the drama that he was unfolding, he was very sick. Now, it's all his drama, but nonetheless, in the drama, he was sick. And they had the doctors go and tell everyone that in order to cure Bhagavan Krishna, they needed for him to drink the water of the dust of somebody's foot. Now, we don't even sit like this in front of people. Like, we know that's very rude. You would never sit like that in front of anybody you respect, let alone like a spiritual master, a guru. But in front of God, we would never even put our foot out. Now they're talking Charan Kadul, the dust of the foot, to offer it for Krishna, to ingest. My God, that's like what we would call mahapap, like a great, great sin. Not just a little sin, but a huge sin. So they ask everybody. And everybody says, no, I would love to help. I would love to do something. But if I do this, मैं तो नरक में जाऊंगी. I'm gonna go to hell. I'm gonna get such bad karmic fruit. I'm gonna be so punished by the universe that literally I will go to hell for doing this. So ask anything else of me. I would do anything for Krishna. But just not this. Like this really, I would spend the rest of all of my lifetimes in hell. And finally they go to Radha. And she says, yes, take it right away as quick as you can. Take the dust of my feet, take it back to Bhagavan Krishna, save him. And they say, but aren't you worried? Aren't you worried that, by doing this, you will get such bad karma that you could go to hell? She says, I don't care. I'll go anywhere. You want to send me to hell? Send me anywhere. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I just want whatever I am, whatever I have, whatever I can do is just for Krishna. अगर उससे मुझे इसका मतलब कि नरक जाऊंगी, वो तो मेरे लिए नरक स्वर्ग हो जाएगा. That hell would be heaven for me, because I would reach there through serving Krishna. And of course, as it turned out, he wasn't really sick. The whole thing was part of a drama and a test and a lesson and all of the things like whenever God is in person, in form on earth. But I love that story because it really shows what we mean when we talk about total devotion and total love. For most of us, it's I love you until and unless it might be inconvenient to love you. I will serve you until and unless it might be inconvenient to serve you. But this is why Radha is seen as this embodiment of perfect love, perfect devotion. Even she's going to go to hell, no problem. Hell will be heaven. Because she's reached there through that love, through that bhakti. So that's one of my favorite stories of her. I was going to share another story, but we'll go into questions, or I could do that all night. We'll start with one of the questions that comes in advance from our online internet-based audience, and then we'll open it up to any questions that any of you have. There's a microphone here in the center, so you can feel free to just come and ask your question. My question is regarding vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. This is actually a question that was given in writing, not by our internet-based audience, but actually by our audience here, but by someone who felt, from you, beautiful. She felt shy to ask it in public, so she sent it in writing. My question is regarding vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. We say and believe that vegetarian food is the best food. But in my travels, I found that more than 80% of people eat non-veg food. So are those 80% wrong? Are we 15 or 20% right? And how can we distinguish between good and bad, between right and wrong? I am totally confused. This is asked by Manju Bansalji. So there's a lot of aspects here. First of all, general consensus does not make something right. There are things that are considered socially acceptable, but that are not right. People lie, people cheat, people steal. And every culture has kind of a different aspect of what's considered socially acceptable. For example, in India, there's much more of a social acceptability around fudging the truth than there is in the culture that I come from in America. In India, there's much more of a sense of saying something that isn't true because you think it's going to make somebody happy. They don't do it to be mean, but they're doing it because they think that when you hear that, it will make you happy. I remember when I first came to India, I needed a wire, a specific cable, to connect my computer that I had brought from America to a printer from here. It was just a simple kind of USB cable sort. And I called the computer guy we were working with in Rishikesh at the time and said, I need such and such a cable. Do you have one? And he said, yes, I have it. And I said, well, how soon can you get here? Because I need to take a printout. He said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. There's somebody in my shop now. I'll finish with them. Coming across by motorcycle. There wasn't so much traffic in Rishikesh those days. This was almost 30 years ago. He said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Great. So I call him an hour later. He's not here. And he says, I'm so sorry. I got held up at the shop. I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Okay. Half an hour later, I call him. He says, I'm on the bridge. I'm on Ramjula. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Half an hour later, I call him. He says, I'm so sorry. I don't actually have that cable that you need. Would you like me to order it for you? Now, I share this story with you because it happens to be one of my favorites, but it is a perfect example of social and cultural acceptances of things that may be right or wrong. The American in me, the Californian in me, was ready to scratch his eyes out. What do you mean you've been lying to me for the last 2 hours? How could you be on the bridge if you didn't even have the cable? What do you mean you're walking out of the shop? I mean, you hadn't even checked to see if you had it. दो घंटे से झूठ बोल रहे मेरे को, बाना बना रहे, stories बना रहे. The American fighter in me was ready to take him on, show him. But what I realized, the growing Indian in me realized, that in his mind, what he did was okay because he had assumed he had the cable, and how much happier I would feel to know that he was walking out of his shop rather than that he kept getting delayed and held up, and he knew in his mind कि मैं पहुंच जाऊंगा. अभी नहीं, थोड़ी देर में पहुंच जाऊंगा, लेकिन मैं पहुंच जाऊंगा. So he wasn't troubled by it at all. Now, this is an example of something that is social, cultural. There are cultural norms. There are places where everyone cheats on their taxes. I remember being in India before our Honorable Modi ji became Prime Minister and talking to people and sort of learning about how common it was that people had, money or gold buried in their front yard or here or there. And again, something that is common and cultural and societally acceptable. Now, from a purely moral and ethical standpoint, we could say what the guy did in the first case was wrong. He was lying. He was absolutely speaking untruth directly, knowingly to me. In the second case, you could say cheating on your taxes, withholding income, it's fraud, it's wrong. And yet, culturally, cheese chalte hain. I give this example because when you travel and you find that 80% of people are eating meat, that doesn't mean that it's right. It just means that in those cultures, it is acceptable. I cannot tell you how many events, summits, forums, conferences I have been to at the United Nations with other big international organizations, conferences and summits that are focused on environmental protection, ending climate change, ending violence, human rights. And we sit in conference halls in which, first of all, in the middle of summer, the air conditioner is up so high that you actually need a sweater in the conference hall. It's 100 degrees outside, and it's 60 inside. And then after the conference, the lunch, the snacks, the dinner, it's all non-veg. You think, seriously? We've just spent hours talking about environmental protection, talking about the deforestation of the rainforest, talking about climate change, talking about world hunger. And nobody is mentioning animal agriculture. I just actually, not even a month ago, was in Brazil at a beautiful interfaith G20 event taking place prior to the G20. And in that event, Mary Robinson, who is the former president of Ireland, she was the first female president of Ireland, she's a beautiful leader. She spoke in her keynote address about the role that animal agriculture, that the meat industry plays on the deforestation of the rainforests, on the destruction of the environment, on climate change. And I spoke right after her. And I said, in all my years of going to these events, this is the first time that I've ever heard someone of her stature, not a religious leader, but a leader of her stature with her impact and influence actually raising this issue. So just because people are not talking about something doesn't mean it isn't true. Cultural norm is we sit in a conference room that is so cold that God only knows what the carbon emissions are of the air conditioning in, these massive, massive expo halls to make it so cold that men in suits and ties and jackets aren't sweating. God forbid people should wear like cotton shirts and take off their jackets so we don't have to turn the AC on so much. And then eating meat. It's culturally acceptable. Nobody thinks. They get on stage and talk about the environment, but nobody thinks about what we're serving for lunch. Is it right to eat non-veg? To me, from a moral and ethical standpoint, I do not think it is right. But I say that not from a religious perspective. I do not say that because the cow is holy. I say that purely from a perspective of environment, climate change, world hunger, distribution of resources. What we know for sure, because all of the science says it, is that the meat industry, the raising of animals for food, is one of the single greatest contributor to all of the problems we face. The deforestation of the Amazon is caused not for oil, not for wood, but to graze cows. The United Nations put out a report called Livestock's Long Shadow that emphasizes how animal agriculture is the single greatest contributor to global warming. We know that. We know that it takes 15 times as much grain to produce meat than it does to produce vegetarian food. If I have 16 kilograms of anaj, rice, corn, soy, wheat, I can make 16 kilograms of bread, of pasta, of chapati, of rice, or I can make 1 kg of meat. I can take all of those 16 kilos, feed them to animals, let the animals digest it, let it turn to fat, let them poop it out, and at the end of the day, the ratio is 16 to 1. 16 kilos of grain gives you 1 kilo of meat. Or 16 kilos of grain gives you 16 kilos of bread, chapati, rice. So if we're eating vegetarian, we are freeing up the food for 15 other people. We're literally taking only 1 rather than for 16. By eating meat, we're literally saying, let 15 other people go hungry. And every single day, tens of thousands of people die of hunger. Almost 1 billion people sleep hungry every night. but we grow enough grain to feed more than 10 billion people. Between distribution issues, between economics of supply and demand and price fixing and whatnot, and the meat industry, we are directly causing the death of those people. So, is being a vegetarian right? By my morals? Absolutely. By my ethics? Absolutely. If you care about people dying of hunger, if you care about the protection of the environment, if you care about climate change, absolutely. It's absolutely the right thing. The fact that lots of people are not doing it doesn't mean that it's not right. Lots of people tell lies. That doesn't mean that the truth is not as important as it used to be. It just means that jhoot bolne lage. Beautiful. Great question, thank you. It's one of my favorite topics. Other questions? Yes, come.
Sadhviji, pranam and very good evening. Sadhviji, I have my request has two parts. One is a request and second is a question. Request is I've been coming to Parmarth Niketan very often. I've been listening to all your satsangs. It really helps. It really helps, and whenever I could see things going out of proportion or hand, I pick up one of your satsangs and it really helps. So the request is, I do understand you have a very, very busy schedule, but whenever you want to travel, if your team can broadcast the earlier recordings so as to have the continuity going, it really helps.
Sure, we can do that.
Because last 3.5 months I could see that a part of me is missing. So it's a sincere request. Second is, as I'm on spiritual, the quest as well, been reading a lot, exploring a lot, I have started adopting things which I could used to hate about. I think in Indian culture there is a very strong saying which every family says that don't hate anything. That thing happens to you very often. And I think one of the ways to reach moksha or liberation is when you come to terms with those things. When you give a piece of you, saying it's okay, this shall get over. Let me surrender, let me give my best, even if it is something which is much more than expected, and at times nowhere coming to you, but you have nothing to do.
Yes.
And if you keep grieving, keep worrying about it, keep thinking about it, it'll make you more worrisome. Instead, stay composed, give a part of you, surrender to the situation, give the best, and just submit it to the God.
Yes.
And this is in resonance to the story of Radha Ashtami, which you just said. Anything and everything which happens to you, he has some plans, so that you should learn how to detach. And then give your best, surrender, and just move on. Just wanted to ask you, is this the right approach?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. Pujya Swamiji always says, well, first of all, let's take your first question. It's a beautiful suggestion. We can definitely do that. He's asked that when I'm traveling, we should play older satsangs, live, restream older satsangs, so that every night there's a satsang streaming, whether I'm physically here or not physically here. So we can definitely do that. And with regard to this aspect of surrender, Pujya Swamiji always says, do your best and leave the rest. That's the key. Very simple. Do your best, and then you leave the rest to God. That's all we can do. This is Bhagavad Gita 101. Do your best, right? Arjun has to fight the war. Not half-heartedly, fully. Full sincerity, full focus, full commitment. And not be attached, right, to the fruits of your labor. This is Core Bhagavad Gita. Do your duty. Do not be attached to the fruits of your labor. Surrender. But along with that, you spoke about this idea of not hating anything. And this is really important because this aspect of what we call rag and dvesh, which is essentially my likes and dislikes, that which I'm grabbing, that which I'm pushing away. This bhed bhav, this sense of discrimination we have in our mind between this is something I want, I've got to have it, and this is something that's an obstacle, get it out of my way. That's a huge hindrance on our path. In yogic philosophy, where they speak about the 5 kleshas, means the 5 core ailments, illnesses, disease of the mind. Of the 5, rag and dvesh are 2, right? So we have ignorance and ego, avidya, asmita, then rag, dvesh, and abhinivesh, fear of death. I won't go in that direction, but point is that this attraction and aversion, by all of our different philosophical teachings, are considered these huge hindrances to us. And this is why Krishna says, a yogi is one. The wise one is one. Who is balanced, who has equanimity in success and failure, gain and loss, pleasure and pain. Now, it's not that the yogi can't tell the difference. It's not that the yogi is dull and stupid and doesn't know what's pleasure and what's pain. But it's that the yogi is not impacted by that. The wise ones are not impacted by that. That there's this equanimity in the face of all. And that's the way. Where there is hatred, there's aversion. You are literally pushing something away. What you're saying inside yourself is, I cannot be in peace or be happy as long as this other thing is present. Whether it's a person, whether it's a situation, कि जब तक वो not change हो, until that changes, I cannot be in peace. And that is really undermining yourself. That's saying my peace, my truth, my anchoring, my grounding, itni halki hai, is so weak that somebody is rude, somebody is obnoxious, somebody lies to me, somebody steals something from me, somebody does this, somebody does that. I miss an airplane, and I'm over. What we're taught is, you are peace. You are joy, Paramanand. Not just temporary satisfaction. You are that, Paramanand. Untouchable. When you recognize that, there's no place for hatred. What's to hate? Yeah, beautiful.
So my question is, how to leave the habit of procrastination? This is my first question. And the second one, how to live in the present moment, how to enjoy the present moment.
Great. How do we live in the present? And how do we stop procrastinating? Procrastination itself is a putting off of the present moment. मुझे अभी कुछ करना है, but I put it off. I'm literally taking my present moment, my duty, my responsibility of the present moment, and I am sending it off into the ether of the future. The way to fix procrastination, to stop it, is with discipline. It's natural. You have something to do you don't want to do. Baad mein kare. The problem with that is that the longer you wait, the more the negative energy builds around that thing. The way to handle that is with discipline. Set up rules. Until and unless you do this thing, you will not allow yourself to go to this party, go shopping, check your Facebook, have dessert, whatever it is. Set up some rule that until you do the thing you're procrastinating, you will not allow yourself to do any of these other things that you want to do. That your phone stays off in the other room, you can't get on social media, can't watch TV, can't call somebody, can't eat your favorite food, can't go where you wanted to go, so that you will buckle down and do it. It's a habit. We were speaking the other night about habits of the mind. It's just a habit. There are people who immediately do whatever they have to do, and there are people who by nature tend to procrastinate. I actually always fell in the latter category. I was always a procrastinator. And what that led to was, in school, the night before an exam, I was awake all night, stressed out, didn't sleep. And you think, why? Totally unnecessary. I've known I had this exam for a month. And that's maturity. As youth, most of us, or many of us, do it. I used to be amazed at my friends, students who were like preparing for exams weeks in advance. But like, my God, kaise karte? This is maturity as we grow, as we move from being young students to being adults. We realize the importance of doing things on time. And you set up systems in which you are rewarded for doing it. As soon as you do it, you can have this sweet, or as soon as you do it, you can spend 15 minutes scrolling on Instagram, or as soon as you do it, you can go to this party or go to the beach. Set up rewards and set up punishments, both. And slowly, slowly, it's how habits are formed. Slowly, slowly, that nature will change. Just get in the habit the minute that you've got something to do. Get it done. And if they're little things, kind of household stuff, or little pieces of work, no problem, club them together. Once a day, have a certain amount of time. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour. Then once a week, have a bigger chunk of time in which all the things that you have to get done, you just do. Sunday afternoon, everything that you need is done. Set aside time so that by Sunday evening when you go to sleep, there is nothing left hanging over your plate. And if you set that up as a weekly ritual, but you also give yourself a period of time every day to just get the little things out of the way. Because a lot of times we don't necessarily want to do it right then because we're in the middle of something. So we put it aside, and then we just keep putting it aside and keep putting it aside and keep putting it aside. Make a rule every day. Maybe just before dinner, maybe just after dinner. Fix a time, whatever works with your schedule. This is my time of just checking items off of my list. All the stuff that I've got to get done, I'm just going to do it in this 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Set up a system, you'll get it done. And staying in the present moment, it's also a practice. Because just as the mind pushes tasks into the future, so the mind finds itself in the future and in the past. It's where the mind likes to go, the past and the future. And it's just a practice. You bring it back. It's why we work on awareness of the breath, mindfulness. Bring the awareness, bring the attention to the breath. Bring it to the body. The body is a fantastic anchor for the present moment. Because the moment you bring your awareness into your body, just try it for a moment. Just take 3 seconds, 10 seconds. Bring the awareness just into your body. And just feel. Are you leaning a little bit more to the left or the right? Front or back? Are there any places the body is particularly tense or contracted, tight? As you take a breath, does the breath flow freely and easily through all of the body? Or are there places that the breath seems to be stuck? Places it doesn't flow so well? Just notice it all. Do you see how quickly that brings you into the present moment? That was probably not even 60 seconds. Just a moment. You can do it with eyes wide open, sitting in a board meeting, sitting at your desk, and it becomes a habit. Bring the awareness, bring it to your breath. Is it flowing up here? Is it flowing down here? Where do you feel it? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Notice your legs, notice your arms. In Buddhist meditation practice and teachings, I've heard a very beautiful practice. Whenever you're feeling stressed out or worried or anxious or anything, they say, bring the awareness to the bottom of your feet. Why? Because 99.9999% of the time, everything is fine on the bottom of your feet. Right? Unless you've just stepped on a bee or a splinter or a very hot piece of ground. Other than that, most of the time the bottoms of your feet are just fine. And whatever you're going through, if you can just suddenly bring the awareness deeply into the bottom of your feet, it pulls you out of the kind of drama of the moment into the body, but specifically into a part of the body that's always okay. So use the body, use the breath as a way of just bringing yourself back. And then give yourself practices of mindful drinking. Instead of just taking it in, chugging it down quickly, can you be aware? Can you be aware of, how the musculature in the arm feels as you pick it up? Feeling kind of the dryness in the throat. You just be aware of all of the little mini muscles in the arm, in the hands, as you tilt the glass, right? Just every step of the way. How does the little bit of water feel on the lips? Can you feel it go down? It's just a practice, it's very simple. But now you can't do it if you're chugging your liquid with this hand and scrolling your phone with that hand, or on the phone with this hand. You've got to be there. You have to be present. So you show up into the moment with attention, with awareness. And that's going to keep you in the present moment. Beautiful. Beautiful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful day to our family joining us online. And I look so forward to seeing you all tomorrow. So much love to you all.